Well, today we're really pleased to welcome Joe McBreen, Assistant Superintendent of Innovation for St. Vrain Valley Schools in Colorado, where he leads a really bold vision for student-centered, future-ready learning. He's a former teacher, principal, chief technology officer who has really deep technical expertise. And Joe blends culture-first leadership with cutting-edge innovation. He oversees the district's Innovation Center, is helping to integrate AI and industry partnerships into K-12 education in really transformative ways. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
My pleasure. It's really an honor to be here. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to both of you.
Excellent. Well, we've been looking forward to it too. And I want to start off with something that I think we might have in common. When I was in college, I had a second job where I worked on the night janitorial team. And as I understand it, that when you were maybe in high school, you were working on a janitorial team at your school?
Yeah, definitely. In the summer and on the breaks. Yeah, that's right. Wow. That's great. Character
That's
building.
excellent. Yeah, definitely. Character building is a nice way of putting it. Yeah, it's how it works.
Let's just say lots of gum was scraped off from underneath a lot of desks.
That could be your next. You could be a startup. You guys share.
We need embodied janitorial teams, maybe. There you go. Well, what's amazing to me is that you've gone from working that job when you were really young to now Assistant Superintendent of Innovation. How does that on the ground perspective, and also as a teacher, obviously, how does that influence how you view the human advantage, especially when we're talking about AI automating so much?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. You know, for me, I just think coming from that place and having been blessed to experience all those different roles, you really get an appreciation for the genius, the wisdom, the contribution that every person on a team contributes, regardless of their role, regardless of their title. And no, I just think that deep, sincere appreciation makes the magic happen. And I don't think you can fake that. I think people can sense when others don't really respect them. And so that this really is a team sport, and you need to have everybody on the team. So that's kind of my philosophy.
You know, when I kind of first got to know you on LinkedIn, and then I saw you ran the Center for Innovation, and you're doing all these really cool things. Like I noticed you had the students with the drones at the FETC. But when I was preparing for this, and I was just went on the district's website and looking how large the district is and how many high schools there are. 7 or 8, but tons of elementary schools. It said like 60 different schools, online school. I'm not sure if your center is kind of its own school. It seems to be listed there with the schools, or if it works with the others. So I wonder if you could just kind of give our listeners like, an overview of like, the totality of the St. Vrain's like school district, and then, what your center is. It's really large, and kind of how it fits in with the overall thing. Is it more standalone, or does it kind of work, kind of with the high schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've got to share. I honestly believe I have the best job on earth, and I work in the coolest K-12 educational facility in the world. And let me make my case to you. We're actually a preschool through 12th grade program. It's not just high school. That's part of the magic. And so we do serve all 60 schools as a center. Technically, we're also our school district's second CTE, Career and Technical Ed Center. But really, from the beginning, the Innovation Center has been designed as like a research and development facility, almost an incubator to test ideas that scale at large. And so when I say we're a preschool through 12th grade shop, that is not an exaggeration. We focus starting literally in preschool with Stanford design thinking model. And in every single classroom, every single grade, district-wide, pre-K through 12, we infuse design thinking into every content area. And so a lot of people that I think is pretty special. But that's one of the focuses here at the Innovation Center at the elementary grades. And then we go on up through middle school and high school, where we have two different elements to the high school program. And I think that's where both of you originally got interested in learning more. Of course, we have high school classes during the day. We have 11 different pathways, and you can hit our website, but some of them won't surprise you, right? Cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, underwater robotics, which is kind of a crack up since Colorado is the most landlocked state in the union. But Anyway, underwater robots, entrepreneurship, video arts, game design. We recently installed a motion capture lab. I don't know if you've seen those or used those at your universities or whatnot, but if you ever come to the Innovation Center, I would love to put both of you in a black Velcro suit with the little reflective dots on all the joints and turn you into a video character or analyze your athletic performance. So that's what we do at the high school level during the day. But I think what you two will find really interesting, and your listeners, hopefully, I think the best part of the Innovation Center happens after school. From about 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on any given night, we actually hire on our payroll as school district employees. We have 264 kids on our payroll right now. So they have two different logons. They log on as a high school student, and then they log on as a St. Vrain employee. And what are they doing, you might ask? This is where it gets interesting. They do real work for real clients. So we have 33 different teams, and some of those teams, I mentioned underwater robotics. Let me give you an example. The students on that team did their biggest, most successful gig recently. They went to our local city's water treatment plant because the water engineers were having a problem. The plant was operating around 80% efficiency. They couldn't figure it out. And so on a whim, they hired the Innovation Center students to go out there, send their little robot under the water, get all the data analysis they could. Lo and behold, they found out that there was a type of algae growing that shouldn't be there. And when they eradicated it, plants back up to 100% efficiency. And so now they proactively send the underwater robot team out there every 3 months to make sure that things are good. And every other surrounding school or city has hired the team as well. I can send you the newspaper article if you're interested, but that's an example of how our students after school are doing real work for real clients, and they're getting paid for it, and it's a self-funding mechanism. And so with that money that they get, not only do they get paid, but they can buy more equipment. And so it's entrepreneurial in nature. It's real problem solving. It's authentic. And that's just one of countless examples I could give you.
I love that, Joe. I mean, it's astonishing to hear that you've been able to build it to that level. How long did it take to get to the point where you have over 200 students working? Because I wanted to ask you a bit about this. Like, where does it stop being school and where is it workforce entry? But you've gone well beyond that. I mean, to the idea where they really have those multiple roles.
Yeah. The short story is about 2013 is when the idea of the Innovation Center started in a classroom, and then it moved to the wing of a building, then a bigger one. And then in 2016, we built this standalone facility thanks to a bond that our community passed. And right now we're in the process of doubling the building to 110,000 square feet. And so I would love for you or your listeners to come visit us sometime. It is a very special place. But I want you to hear it took way over a decade to get to that point. Lots of trial and error, successes and failures.
Now, most of the students you have like during the day, are they there? Is this like kind of their primary classes or however we want to describe them? Are they also doing some regular classes? I know your district is huge. Maybe you could talk about the geographic scope of it. So how do you manage kind of the geographic scope with the center being in the one location?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our school district is the 7th largest in Colorado, around 33,000 students. I say it's a Goldilocks sized district. It's not too big, but it's not too small. It's just right. In all of our high schools, every period, every day, students go from their home high school. So I want you to hear the Innovation Center is an enrichment program. It is not their home high school. We are not a school. We're an enrichment program where every period, every day we run buses, and kids can't, or if kids have their own car, they can drive here, but they can take a bus, take a class, and then they go back. And so the thing that I love about the Innovation Center is it's a place where students can test drive careers. We don't lock kids into career pathways. That's one problem I have with traditional career and technical education is, man, once you start going down a pathway, you're kind of locked into it. And we're the exact opposite. The students who flourish the most here are actually the ones that bounce around into different areas. Maybe they try a little cybersecurity. Maybe they try to be a pilot. Maybe they try something totally different, video game design. And so it's a It's an enrichment program. And the other thing that a lot of people are confused about is it's not just technology. We have a very robust entrepreneurial pathway, super strong, video, it just goes on and on. So AI is a huge part of it. We've got a really successful AI program. I'd love to talk about that if you're interested. But what I want you to hear is it's not a gifted and talented school, and it's not a technology school. Yeah, it's just really everybody can come pursue your curiosities and passions and just be a kid and be hungry to learn.
Let me ask you kind of a two-part question there and lead into your offer to say a little bit about the AI programs you have. What's really the design philosophy behind deciding which programs to build out? I mean, you have so many of them. How do you avoid kind of chasing shiny objects, or how do you respond to that critique? And, we've heard on our campuses, oh, you're just viewing AI as the new shiny object. How do you make that decision? And then tell us a little bit about what you were able to do with that with the AI program for students.
Okay. One of the more important things that I would love for anybody listening to this or watching this to understand is that you've already heard how we blur workforce with education. The other place where we really blur lines is on any given day after school, we will have dozens of business people in our facility working side by side with those after school work teams or project teams. So that blurring of historically separate industry from education is very intentional. Every one of our focus areas has an advisory board made up of top flight professionals, and they don't all live around here. Some of them, do virtual meetings. And we also have an overarching advisory board for the Innovation Center in general. And so, here's a great example. Colorado is one of the nation's leaders when it comes to the topic of quantum information sciences and technologies. And so about 2.5 years ago, our advisory board started mentioning like, hey, this is coming down the pike. Hey, we might get this Elevate Quantum grant, blah, blah, blah. And so because of that, right now today we have, I believe, Colorado's only intro to quantum class. And we're going to have a big conference next fall. And not that we're so special, but I do think it's unique that a K-12 education facility intentionally seeks out expertise in the form of these advisory boards and every day in the form of mentors. So that's where all the ideas come from. And also, one of our guiding principles is strategic abandonment. We're not afraid to decommission programs or pathways that, their time has come or it's not generating a ton of interest. So, yeah. So we've turned off a few programs too. It's not just additive.
The one thing I think about, I mean, so much traditional education, right? It's centered around the AP courses or IB, whatever you have, and, doing well in school generally. And then, of course, doing well in the SAT, ACT, getting your letters of recommendation, right? That's kind of your traditional profile. And obviously within your program, you might have some students who are not going to college, maybe it's a direct career pathway, but you have other students who are going to college. But I mean, my guess is that most of these students are, at least especially on the experiential side of learning, are far ahead of, right, like other students, who are kind of entering universities. Like, so how do you think about that? Are there certain kind of universities you recommend or types of programs? And like, how do your students think about that? Because my guess is they have a lot more hands-on experience than, even the best students coming out of other really good schools.
Yeah. One of the things that we always try to provide the students is opportunities for them to differentiate themselves. And it happens quite naturally when they follow their curiosities and their passions. Let me give you an example. In Colorado, one of the premier scholarships that students can get is called the Betcher Scholarship. And we've had numerous students get Betcher scholarships because I swear it's not just the communication skills and their ability to talk about teamwork, not just theoretically, but in reality. I'm thinking of last year's winner, a really amazing young lady who was one of the leaders in a conservation effort to save a little frog called the leopard frog. And working with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and her whole team basically helped this little frog thrive in Colorado. And I think those sorts of real examples separates out students, whether they're pursuing a scholarship or trying to attend a college of their choice. It's not made up BS. It's not fake. I'm just trying to jam crap into my resume so that I can get into a better college. It's very real. And I particularly love the fact that kids, again, will bounce around from team to team to team. And that's actually a strength. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that model of collaboration, and that's something that I've been pushing for a lot on our campus is for students to have those opportunities because the technology almost secondary to it because the experience of working together, team building, working authentically, those communication and collaborative skills are so important. Give an example, and this is something that I just love seeing in my LinkedIn feed from your drone team. Tell us just a little bit about the drone team. It's astonishing not only that you have a drone team, but that they're going and doing these professional shows. And I'll include some footage, if you don't mind, from maybe FETC so that our viewers can see this. But tell us a little bit about the drone team and how did that come about where they're FAA commercial drone licensed and pilots, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. Yeah, we have a whole team of it. Yeah, it's pretty special. And by the way, I'd also love to share an example from our AI leadership team that I think hopefully it would impress you too. Anyway, so the drone team, boy, I'll tell you what, a couple years ago, we got this crazy idea to become the world's first high school drone performance team. And step one is we had to go get the equipment, the systems, the drones, the servers, the networks, all that sort of stuff. According to our procurement policy in our district, we had to go out to a competitive bid. And we shot that bid out worldwide, I think to 30 or 40 different vendors, and we only had 6 reply. And when our purchasing department reached back out to those companies, like, why aren't you replying? Some companies were honest enough to say, high school, come on, really? There's no way high school kids can do this. And it's, okay, fair enough. So anyway, we partnered with this amazing company, all American made out of Michigan named Firefly Drone Systems because they bought into the education side of thing. Again, that partnership between industry and education is blurred. It's not somebody providing equipment. It's like, we're in this together. And so literally 22 months ago, it was only 22 months ago, our lead teacher and 2 students flew up to Michigan, got trained, and now we have over 50 shows under our belt. We just flew one in Orlando, as Stefan mentioned, and we're looking at flying at ASU GSV in San Diego, the closing ceremony there on April 15th. And so literally in less than 2 years, because our students are doing such mind-blowingly cool work, and I can lift up the hood and get into the nerd knobs if you're interested on why we pursued this. But the upshot is that it's emotional, it's visible, it induces pride. And I just think it's the coolest thing ever in STEM. And
I've done some work in China and I have a lot of connections, and I see a lot of stuff on my social feeds about these amazing drone shows that are happening in China. And then I see your ETC show, and it's just kind of like, this is kind of America. On New Year's Eve, my friends are posting the fireworks, and in China, my friends are posting the drone shows. I was kind of a little, a follow up and connecting back to the AI to talk about the AI. I mean, there's AI and everything, obviously, in drones, right? But I'm wondering kind of if you both talk about your program, but how you approach things like, okay, AI literacy, some idea of understanding like how the technology works. If you do, then people say the next thing is the social applications, but also, I mean, when all technologies, right, at this point, we have some AI, right? And, entrepreneurs are going to want to learn how to use AI. So I'm kind of wondering how you approach it, both generally and then, in terms of the specific applications.
yeah, happy to talk about that. I'd like to separate my response into 2 different parts. One is district-wide, and then the other one's more innovation center specific. So district-wide, understand that since 2013, our district's been a 1-to-1 iPad district. And so we have a very mature technology adoption from that perspective. And so when AI hit the radar in November of 22, literally January of 2023, every month, our administrators started getting trained on some aspect of AI to the best that we could. So we tried to get in early, bringing in the school board, bringing in the teachers, bringing in the student advisory groups. And that was in the spring of 2023. And since then, we've developed a framework we call Ethos, which I'm happy to email to both of you in case you want to share a link with in the notes of this show. But our district has been very methodical about leaning into AI responsibly. So we are in no denial that AI isn't a thing, and we're definitely not the type of district to turn it off or whatever. But no, it's like, let's lean into this and use it responsibly. So we've standardized on tools so far, like Google's Gemini for the LLM. School AI is another layer of our stack. But rather than getting into the what's, just know that like countless hours of discussion with parents and students and teachers have gone on in the last several years. And it's resulted in this framework or philosophy where it's like, we don't say pilot, we say prototype. We're prototyping to do things. We're not piloting things because that implies they may not work, but, oh, this is going to work. It's just we're prototyping. So.
It's so impressive that you, as a district, were able to move that quickly, that early. I mean, there's some schools that are still several years later, still taking those initial steps. I would love to hear a little bit more about the Ethos framework. At my campus, we're really focusing heavily on the ethical implications. And it really sounds like what you've been able to do is to help navigate some of those gray areas for the use of generative AI or study of generative AI. Could you tell us about the Ethos framework, and then maybe separately tell us a little bit about the AI leadership program that you have at the Innovation Center?
Yeah, definitely. Again, I'll provide links or notes or whatever for the listeners to check out. But Ethos was a very, very clever approach to the philosophy or framework of how we're going to engage with AI. It's really kind of one of the things I love about the spirit of the teachers in our school district and our leaders is years ago, we came to this realization. It first started with the iPad, but we've applied it to AI and other things. Think of a Venn diagram where a lot of schools focus on obtaining. I'll send you this little diagram that I made like 12 years ago too. A lot of schools focus on obtaining things, obtaining hardware, a Chromebook, an iPad or whatever, obtaining a chatbot, right? But then they give very little thought to training, if any thought, or it's a one-shot wonder, right? We're going to give you an inoculation of training and then go on your way, right? So obtain, train. But then the third one that people always forget about is sustainability. How are you planning to financially sustain that investment in hardware? How are you planning on sustaining that investment in training? And so consequently, the professional development department in our school district is just world class. They're always doing something. It's a constant drip, a constant presence of upskilling our teachers. For example, in 2 weeks, we have a lady named Catlin Tucker coming to talk to all of our teachers on a Saturday. And we have around 2,400 teachers. There will be at least 1,000 teachers there on a Saturday in February, because it's just part of the well, dare I say, ethos of our district.
That's excellent. Tell us a little bit about the AI leadership program that you referenced in the Innovation Center. What does that provide for students?
Yeah. So again, there's two parts to the Innovation Center in high school. One is during the day. We have AI classes. Yay, neat. A lot of high schools do. Maybe not as good as my teachers, but anyway, just kidding. I'm very proud of her name's Mai Vu. She was a lawyer and then she became a teacher, and she's just anyway, her heart is as big as her brain. So she's our teacher. But the AI leadership team that you keep asking me about happens after school. It's one of those after school work teams, if you will. And so the AI leadership team for several years has existed way before November of 2022. As a matter of fact, I may have heard of the World Artificial Intelligence Challenge for Youth competition, WACI. In the last 4 years, Ivu and her students have won gold, silver, and bronze. And last year they won the design medal for the best design of AI projects. And I can talk to you about a couple different examples of those, but I just want you to hear that AI is so much bigger than just LLMs. Well, and agents now, right? Even though that's huge, and I'd love to talk to you two about that. But yeah, so the AI leadership team again does real work for real clients. And let me give you an example of real work for real clients from 3 years ago. Back in the year 2013, our area suffered a 500-year flood, and it washed out our local river called the St. Vrain River. That's what our school district's named after, St. Vrain Valley. So it washed it out, caused all sorts of problems for the local fish species. So Boulder County Parks and Open Space wrote a grant for $1.3 million to develop a fish passage so that the fish could continue to spawn around the damaged area. Isn't that neat? One problem, guys. How do you know if it worked or not? Well, you could do it the old-fashioned way. You could hire a bunch of employees and volunteers and get out there and hip waders and nets and electrocute the river and have the little fish float up on their bellies, and you count them, get a statistical analysis, and yay, right? And so what's really neat is one of our partners said, hey, AI kids, do you think you could come up with a better way for us to see if this was successful counting fish? And so our students under Mai's leadership literally went over to Best Buy and bought off-the-shelf stuff, GoPro cameras, T-Mobile hotspots. They set up an Amazon Web Services account. And what they did is they set up these underwater cameras. And so that when fish would swim by the underwater camera, step number one in the model's challenge was distinguishing between a fish and the debris or turbidity in the water. And once they figured that out, they started improving this computer vision model to the point where they could identify whether it was a brown trout or a rainbow trout or whatever. And then later they were working on, by the way, there was a series of these cameras underneath water. It wasn't just one. They would put them behind little rocks and trees and stuff as the little fish swam upstream. So what they would do, guys, is as the fish would swim by, they were improving the model to the point where they could tell if it was the same fish that swam by, so it wouldn't be counted twice. Wow. And in real time, the model would recognize that up to the Amazon cloud update or real-time dashboard, and people could literally all around the world watch and see the tickers go up as little fish would swim by. Wow. So that won them the gold medal in the World Artificial Intelligence Challenge for Youth.
Yeah, I bet. I helped some kids with the Trump one, right? The Department of Ed AI competition,
presidential challenge,
and they're from the Northeast. And I even just flat out told the kids, I said, you know what? We're lucky we're not in Colorado because there's this school district state reigns, and I was like, we would have no chance. I said, but I think we have a chance in our own state. But as you were describing the projects, it kind of made me think of that.
One of the things that you'll be pleasantly surprised to hear is that our teachers completely empower the students. Like, they go back to remember Boy Scouts, the Pinewood Derby Challenge?
Yeah.
Well, that kid who wins every year, it's not him doing it, it's his dad doing it, right?
Yeah.
Our teachers take the exact opposite approach, where they literally empower the kids. They own it. They're more like guides or coaches. They don't put their ego in it. It's just the results speak for themselves.
Pretty amazing.
Stefan, I think the New York kids are very super well qualified and likely to do super well.
So I wonder, you have this building with 50,000 square feet, 110,000 square feet. Like, how many rooms are in this building?
I could count not as many rooms as you might expect because we have lots of common meeting space.
Right. Yeah.
We have a really robust aeronautics program, pilot ground school, which requires big simulators. We are always doing elementary school STEM field trips here. We take every elementary school in our whole district here twice per year. Like, literally thousands of elementary kids and their parent chaperones come here. It's kind of a recruiting center, to be honest with you. The parents of the kids come and then they recruit.
I want to go over there, right in that building. Yeah.
Another cool thing you guys might appreciate is to fund all these technologies and experimental things. We run summer school programs. And so on any given summer school, we have around 750 to 800 students participating in all these really cool summer camps. Wait for it. The high school kids teach the preschoolers through 8th grade. My staff is literally just supervising the high schoolers. So it's success begets success, and, little kids teaching or older kids teaching younger kids. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked about the rooms is, I have this debate background, right? And one of the things with running a debate tournament is you got to find all the space, and it's really complicated. So I was like, oh, well, they have this building. It probably has like hundreds of rooms. I'm like, they have 60 schools, right? And that they could all have debate teams. I looked it up, like three at
You're
three of your high schools, and the one middle school has one. And then you told me the teachers love professional development. It was like there's like a
I love
thousand
it.
teachers who could be debate coaches. So, we're gonna have to come out there, and we're gonna have to put together a debate tournament in this innovation center with all the schools.
You know what? I've got to turn the tables on you for a second. I don't know anything about debate, but I appreciate your work so much that I'm like, got to get into that. Because if Stefan's saying it, I've got to do it, man.
Thanks. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And to me, I started actually was my first job as a teacher. I was a computer science teacher. It was more like a hobby, but the school needed a debate coach and they needed a computer science teacher. So I was like,
Right.
sure, I can teach this. And it was pretty basic stuff like HTML. Just kind of really basic. So I got into it, and then I did some technology stuff in debate. And I saw the old generative AI with like 2.25. It barely worked, so I half read the article. But then when 3.5 came out, I was like, wow, this is really going to have a big impact on education. So that's how I got into it. And I remember, I don't know if Anna remembers, but I called him one day and I'm telling him about it. Right. And we're going through it. But, the more I learned about it and the more I thought about it, and especially the transformative effect, I was like, a lot of this has to be about instructional redesign and not just using the chatbot to kind of do everything you're going to do. Obviously it's pretty good at writing. It's good at writing papers. Writing's still important, but I think we'll have a little more orality. And you referenced that when you're talking about entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of teamwork, kids working together. Iterative debate. They're constantly improving. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to come out sometime and you know, three of your high schools do have debate teams. So you have, you've got we just got to get it to all 60 schools. The online school, there's online debate tournaments. We got to get it in the innovation center. So yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, that'd be super cool. Maybe we could have a man versus machine thing.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. I'd get, Jeff Hinton says that he said like in 15 years, the AI will always beat the human in a debate. Now, I don't know if that's like his definition of AGI, but anytime I listen to it, I'm like, oh, don't say that. Don't
Yeah,
say that. That's me, right? Like, don't, but it is fun. The kids can practice against the AIs. They get better with their questions and their answers and testing their
100%.
evidence, right? So you could have an AI debate lab set right up in the innovation center.
Ooh,
Lucky he's thinking. I mean, you could, because it is, especially with you guys. I've done this kind of informally, getting the chatbots. We have some friends working on a project called Debater Hub, and one's super technical. He has a master's in machine learning, and they're kind of doing that side of it. But yeah, I mean, and that can help kids with any subject, right? Like and even just presentations in class. So that'd be so cool. Even kids who maybe they don't think they're really into tech, or they don't care about AI or something, or maybe they don't like it, but that might be their bridge into your center,
I love
And
that.
the parents would be like, wow, right?
Yeah,
That would really send the parents
I love
there.
it.
But
These are great ideas, and I think we're going to have to continue some of those discussions. I want to ask you a little bit, Joe, about what really stands out to me about the model that you have for the center is something that, I mean, Stefan and I have been talking about for the last year or two, and trying to encourage other schools to develop this model, this interactive model. It's very collaborative. There's a lot of student leadership. And there's a great role for student agency. I mean, they're really driving a lot of this work, and, not just the entrepreneurial lab, but also all of the other teams. It sounds like they're really taking a leadership role in how this is developing. Now, you pointed out that this is a separate center than a lot of the other high schools. How do you see that playing out as they go back to their host high schools, or for the other high schools? Do you see that kind of permeating as a model for other areas of education in the county?
Honestly, I don't at this point, because each one of our home high schools has a focus area, and we have open enrollment in Colorado. So focus area might be cybersecurity and leadership at one high school. It might be, anyway, all of our high school, it might be energy at a different high school. And so it's not that Yeah, I just don't know if there's capacity to inject what we do in the traditional or home high schools, to be
And
honest.
that makes sense. I mean, I think that's probably true for a lot of schools. I mean, I think that what you've outlined, what you've developed over the last 10 years is really the right model at all levels of education, even starting in grade school. I mean, having students working that collaboratively is really amazing. I also wanted to then ask as a bit of a follow-up what that means for those students when they go on, for those that decide to go to college, when they get to college. I imagine some of them are a little disappointed because there aren't a lot of colleges that are working at the level that you're able to do with the Innovation Center, especially in terms of kind of that collaborative model. What are the students telling you when they come back?
You actually nailed it. They are surprised that higher education doesn't offer more opportunities for authentic learning. Yeah, that's really it. Disappointment, surprise is the most common reaction. Makes us feel good in one way and then totally disappointed in others, right? Or sad.
Do you have many students then that when they see that or they recognize it, or maybe they're just so empowered by the model that you developed that they don't bother going to college. They just go right into the industry because it sounds like you've equipped them with so many skills and a great knowledge base that I mean, if I had an FAA license when I was in high school, I don't know that I think I'd probably want to go off and keep running drone events.
It's an and. They go to college, and here's the thing,
Cool. Yeah.
the entrepreneurial spirit kicks in, that they do their own side gig, their own side hustle. For example, many of our students have that from our video arts program have their own production company. Trying to think, you mentioned the drones. On any given Friday, one or two of our students are going to Denver International Airport and being flown somewhere in America to fly a commercial drone show for some other company. And they are making ludicrous amounts of money. Good for them. But what's really kind of cool is when they land, somebody from the company, they either have to Uber them there or somebody has to pick them up because they can't rent a car. And so it's an and. They go to college and they do their side hustle.
I saw this earlier, early on in the AI debate, and it's even more possible now, with all these agentic tools and, they're getting easier and easier for anybody to use. I'm like, there are gonna be students in high school who are making a lot of money, and it's gonna create kinda awkward situations. I mean, they're gonna make more than, some of the employees of the high school, unfortunately, because, teachers are not very, very well paid, and, then I kinda joked, at the time I was kind of all angry about the writing detectors. I'm like, "Yeah, they're gonna make like $10,000 over the weekend, then they're gonna go to class and get in trouble because they're gonna get flagged for using AI." But what kind of on a more serious note, what I want, are there smaller colleges in around your area or, even larger places where the students are going that are, reaching out to you? We always kinda see, like, the innovations coming from, college to K-12, but in this case, it seems like they need to go in the opposite direction. So I'm wondering if you've had people from higher ed reach out to you to, see what kind of programs they might make part of their universities or even community colleges.
Yeah, we're actually starting to see that depending on the college or university and depending on the subject area. For example, CU Boulder has a very Colorado University Boulder campus has a very strong aeronautics program. We have a very strong aeronautics program. And so we're starting to see more and more kids go there and upon conversation find out that like, yeah, I've been talking with this professor and I don't think it's so much recruiting as it is just natural conversation. We encourage all of our kids to develop their professional network, LinkedIn accounts, go to meetup events, go to conferences. And this starts when they're 15 years old, right? So, for example, our film crew has gone to the Austin Film Festival a couple of years, and they are right up front, dead center, asking the questions. And Sundance Film Festival is coming to Boulder next year. I guarantee you these kids are going to be developing their professional networks because they're passionate about it. It's not an assignment. They want to do it. So
Yeah. You mentioned that this drive that they have, this passion that they have about the work that they're doing. One thing that we've talked a bit about in other episodes and I continue to talk with colleagues about is how do we help students develop that intrinsic motivation? And there's so much about traditional education that kind of drives that out of them. I'm curious, and if you could say a little bit about that, and maybe to start with, when students are seeking out they're joining the Center for Innovation. Do you think that these are students that already have that intrinsic motivation and so they're self-selecting? Or is there something about the process that you have, the school as you've set it up as the center, that it helps build that intrinsic motivation for those students?
Yeah, I think there's two distinct camps. There's those kids who always have known they want to be a pilot, to be a, fill in the blank. Those kids are easy, right? The other ones, I believe, and I honestly believe this, starting at those elementary field trips, those summer camps, tons of outreach. We have two different mobile labs that are always going out into the community doing STEM experiences with families and communities. I think just all those multiple touch points in talking with the staff members at the Innovation Center, the students and families really get a sense that it's a safe zone. Like the staff members at the Innovation Center love the kids and they love them where they're at, and it's okay to explore. I can send you a video, I will, of a young lady named Sienna Ariano, who came to the Innovation Center completely lost, just didn't know what else to do, and completely thrived and flourished because she had opportunities and because she was loved unconditionally. So, I think I think there's a human nature, and I think there's I don't know if that helped.
It's not just the technology or the coolness of it, right? It's also like, yeah, kids need and anybody needs a place where they can belong, right? And kids find that in different places, and it seems that one of the places they're finding that is in the center. It's pretty
One
impressive.
one of our biggest problems is kids love it here so much, they'll gravitate here even on days they don't have classes. It's like, what are you doing here? You had class yesterday, and it's like, "Oh, I just love being here," type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's very rare. It's very
Let me
rare.
pull on that thread a little bit, because that example that you give of that young woman, and it's something you mentioned a little bit earlier about students kind of experimenting and jumping from one thing to another. It's not necessarily the I want to be a drone pilot, but I want to be there because of the process, or maybe the way it's the community is built. How does that work for those students? I mean, do they have to apply to be part of it? And maybe that's a little bit of it, or is it that they're thinking more about, hey, I just want to be there because I'd like, when I've come as an elementary school student, I always had a good feeling when I was there. How do you build that sense of community?
Think it starts with just the multiple touch points, field trips, blah, blah, blah. But I just keep going back to the teacher variable. If when you both visit, you can come here, let me give you a quiz. What percentage in a typical K through 12 school in America during the month of April, what percentage of the staff is just like beaming and positive and on fire from bell to bell?
Not very many, is getting ready for AP and the end of the school year. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just the drag, right? But what's really fun is when you come visit in April or any month out of the year, guys, every single teacher here is truly on fire. Heart out, face. They can be going through personal stuff like you wouldn't believe, but there's so much love for the kids that so overcomes that fear or that awkwardness that a lot of teenagers have. I just think our staff loves them through it, to be honest with you. That I can't believe I'm talking about love with you two higher ed AI studs,
It's
but
fantastic. Yeah.
I
it's
think they
true.
so too.
It's
But
true.
it kind of it makes you reflect back, when Anand was asking you, okay, well, how easy it is, and you infuse it into the other high schools or whatever, and it can be complicated for different reasons, but that can be infused everywhere. Right? Like that kind of love, like that excitement, that energy, and I see you, on LinkedIn, right? It's like you have so much energy, right? You're always kind of showing and you're always showing the kids, like, what are the kids doing, right? Or, there's some programs in the center I like, every time I look, there's like neuroscience and Python, you got all the things, and the kids are doing stuff. But I also kind of have this thing, I said it once, it's like, well, a lot of people basically spend about a quarter of their lives in school.
Mm.
Right. I mean, kids enter anytime, 3 or 4 years old, people stick around till they're 24, 25, right? They live to be 80. That's 25% of their life. I'm like, school should be like kind of a more exciting, like fun place, right? Like if you're going to live 20, obviously then other people, like us, we work in them, but it should be a happy place, right? For the most part, it should be happy, and you really seem to kind of allude. I mean, I'm sure your leadership helps right? All those teachers, kind of project that kind of excitement. I was talking with someone the other day about, debate and kind of expanding debate. I'm like, well, you need to focus on the places where the leaders want to do exciting things.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, if you you go to a school district and, they just don't seem like they wanna do anything, it's, "All right, well, we'll come back in 5 years." Because you've gotta you have to have leadership that has excitement, and I do find that on LinkedIn. I mean, there aren't people posting on LinkedIn who aren't excited, right?
Right.
So, it's just kind of it's a really energizing, social network.
Well, I'm very sincere. I would love for both of you and anybody listening to this to come visit because it's one thing to talk about it, but I would love for you to see it in person anytime,
Thank
anytime.
you.
Well, let me ask you this then. Let's say a teacher from, a school district in one of our areas comes. This is many of the other schools are far behind in terms of that timetable of integrating AI, responding to AI. What advice would you give, given that you were so proactive and you now have several years of experience of dealing with generative AI in the classroom? What's your advice to another school district that's just saying, look, we'd love to get to where you are, but how do we get there? How do we start? What would the first steps look like?
Um, I think it goes back to that old African proverb of if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So step one, you got to form your team, parents, community members, leaders. It's this is too big and too important for a small group of school administrators, especially at the district who hasn't been in a classroom in years, to make the guiding decisions for thousands of souls. This is just way too big. I mean, this is an Operation Gang Tackle type effort. Many brains, many brains. So that's my advice is step number one, get your team. Step number two, focus on your values. Like, how do you want to be before you worry about what you want to do? That's the biggest mistake, right? People jump into, should we block it? Should we not? And it's like, whoa, what do we value? What's our vision? So anyways, just basic stuff, basic leadership stuff.
Professors kind of assume, kids come in with a certain set of skills, and of course, the grumpy ones are like, well, they don't even have these skills. I'm starting back here. They don't know how to write, they don't know how to read. They kind of you got the curmudgeons, but they're definitely like, your students are going to enter in a different kind of place, so to speak, than most students. So, what kind of advice would you give to professors, or when students like yours like show up in their classes?
Gosh, that's a great question. My gut reaction is have a conversation with them. I mean, when was the last time a professors honestly converse with every student in their class? I would ask that. Here's a fun example, and I hope this doesn't make any of your audience cringy. But my best friend from college and my wife and one other person were recently talking about tell me who the most influential professor was for you in college. Out of all the dozens of professors, I could name one like that. The other ones, I'm like, crap, I can't even remember their name. The one professor who I could remember actually talked to me with respect, with sincerity. And so I don't know, maybe just have a conversation with people like they're human.
Yeah, that should be part of every professional development that we offer to faculty. That's
It,
fantastic.
it ain't it ain't happening though. I'm telling you, man, it's not
Well, no,
happening.
I love too, just to reflect for a second, like when we ask you advice how to get these started, you bring it back to so many basic human things like have a conversation, get
Yeah,
people together,
yeah.
talk about your values and like where you want to go.
Well,
Have some energy, like when you engage the students, right? These are not when somebody might see innovations, they get all well, it's like
yeah,
technology, right? I don't know AI and they kind of run away.
yeah.
But that's not really the starting point. The starting point is the human qualities.
You're right. And the other thing, when you visit here, you'll probably be impressed that a K-12 building looks the way this one does. It's very shiny and very impressive, has a Silicon Valley vibe to it, right? At some levels, I think that's doing a disservice because we have people that visit us, hundreds and hundreds of people visit us every year from all over the world. I almost think that's a disservice because everything our teachers and students are doing, you don't need a fancy building. The design thinking preschool through 12, that's free basically. Like literally, come on, man. And then I think the secret sauce besides the after school work teams or project teams, doing real work for real clients, I think it's that partnership like reaching out to local business people and saying, hey, here's the other thing. We never, ever, ever ask for a handout. I think that's a huge mistake that K-12 schools do. They ask for handouts. We're so broke, our AC doesn't work. Dude, nobody wants to invest in that. Nobody. But if you go to them and go, look at all these great things we're doing, and if you give us a little bit more, we can do even more. And you're infused with people from the Rotary and the Optimist Club and, local city chamber of council. They're just part of your vibe. Dude, you're going to pass that next bond and mill levy. You're going to. But don't just go asking for a handout, because nobody wants to back that. That's my 2 cents. That's not the school
Well,
district.
thank you so much, Joe. This has really
Yeah.
been incredible. We do look forward to meeting you.
Yep. We need to schedule a time to come and visit. I think I would love to come and see the work that you're doing. Joe, for everybody that's watching or listening, how can they find out more? How can they find more about your work or about the Center for Innovation?
Yeah, the Innovation Center is innovation.svvsd.org. And I'm on LinkedIn. And yeah, I just love to connect with people that care about students. And it's such an honor to talk to higher educators. It's just, we have great partnerships with our local higher ed institutions, but to talk to you two, super cool. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And I think
We
you're
really enjoyed it.
basically already in higher ed, or at least in what higher ed ought to be.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks
Anyway,
a lot.
thank you,
Excellent.
fellas.
Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate it.